Okay, I'm going to show you how to do basic calculations on your sweater. If you want to make it for any size, I had to go in and redo a calculation for my neckline, and we'll go over that. Now, this is a basic sweater. I'm doing striping, but you don't have to do striping. And so you can do this just plain, and I'll put a blog link on how to go in and calculate up a sweater and what these numbers mean and how you go in and make your own. And this isn't going to be a front panel, back panel. This is going to be the body, and then you do the sleeves, and you're going to work them together to start doing your neckline and then do a turtleneck. And so that is the style that we're looking at. Now, what you want to do is you want to make a swatch, and you need to decide what yarn you're using, what loom you're using. And I'm using Bernat Maker Home Decor in the 1/2 inch gauge. And so I did a swatch of 10 stitches with 15 rows. And what you do when you have a swatch is you measure out the number of stitches you have per inch, which is 4, and then you stretch it out as far as you can, which I got 2. You add 4 and 2 together, and then you divide it by 2, and I get 3. And that's what you do for any gauge that you're doing, is you measure it out, not stretched, and then stretched, add the 2, divide the 2, and you get your stitches per inch. Then you want to measure your rows per inch, and I got 6 rows per inch. So it's 3 stitches per inch, 6 rows per inch. Now you need a series of measurements. You need the circumference of your chest, waist, and hips. You figure out which one is the largest of those measurements and work from that. Then you'll need your length from your pit to however long you want the sweater. Then you need your arm length from your pit to your wrist. Then you need your circumference of your arm. You need the circumference of your neck and the neck length. Okay? Now, after you have your measurements, you write them all down. Then you want to add 2 so that it's a little looser. If you want it really baggy, add anywhere from 4 to 5 inches. I'm adding 2 to my measurements here, and if you want a neckline, a turtle neckline that's going to be a lot looser, like for instance, I'm going to be using the Cindy Wood equivalent of the Leisure Arts oval looms in the 1/2 inch gauge. So one loom is 70 pegs, the other is going to be 54 pegs, and I'm going to use a 54 peg loom in a rib stitch for the neckline so that it'll be loose and not too tight, and be comfortable to wear. And so if you want a looser neckline, you may need to take your neck circumference and add anywhere from 5 to 6 inches. Okay, so now that we've got that far, we're going to work our body. So what we want to do is we want to take our chest circumference, and we want to times that by the stitches per inch to get our total number of pegs that we would need for this project. And that is going to be 70. So I take my circumference of 23 for my chest and times that by 3 stitches per inch, and I get 69, and I round it up to 70. Now I need to figure how many rows I need to do for my length of my body, and I got 16 in length. And so I'm going to times that by rows per inch. So I'm going to get 16 times 6 is 96. So length times rows per inch equals total body rows. All right, now you want to figure out you want to take your arm width measurement, your circumference of your arm, and you want to divide that by 2. And that gives you number C. That's going to be basically your number of inches for your chest area. Okay, so you're going to take that number C, and you're going to times that by number of rows per inch to get your total number of rows for the chest area, which is 36 rows. Okay, so you want to calculate in your arms. So you want to take your arm length, and you want to times that by rows per inch. So arm length times RPI equals total number of rows. And that gives me 78 rows for my arm. Then I want to take my arm circumference, my arm width, and I want to times that by stitches per inch, 3 stitches per inch, and I get 36. So arm width times stitches per inch equals number of arm pegs. Alright, and so I'll need 36 pegs for my sleeves. Alright, now we want to go to the neckline, which is where I had to change it up some. So what you want to do is you want to do number of pegs, which was 70, and number of arm pegs, which is 36, so plus pegs, number of arm pegs, plus number of arm pegs, because you have 2 sleeves. Keep that in mind. Then you get your total number of stitches. So then you take your total number of stitches and you minus that by the number of stitches you're going to use for your turtleneck, which for me is going to be 54. Okay, so what I get was I had a total of 142 stitches, and I end up getting, after I minus my neck rows, I get a total of 88 decreases that have to happen. Now I have 4 sections. I have my front, back, sleeve, sleeve, 4 sections. So you're going to take that total number of decreases and you're going to divide it by 4. So as you can see, number TD divided by 4 is number DPS, decreases per section. Alright, so we're going to have 22 decreases per section, and we're going to do 2 decreases in a single row. So you want to take 22 and divide it by 2, which means you're going to have 11 rows for each section to have 2 decreases in it. So total number of decreases per section divided by 2 is total number of decreases, number of decreased rows. Then you're going to take and need to figure in your number of rows in a set. So then you want to take your, go back up here to your chest area. So your chest rows was 36. And you want to divide that by your total, your decreases per row. Okay, decreases. Okay, which was 11. So 36 divided by 11 is 3.27. And we're going to round that down to 3, which means you're going to do 2 rows of knit and 1 row of decrease, where there's 2 decreases, 1 on each side. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be modularly knitting the body and the upper sleeve together so that you have one less thing to sew. And so when we do our decreases, it's going to be a little differently, so you can keep your nice beautiful chain along the edge of the sweater. That is your neck area. Now, we need to figure out how many rows we need to do for our turtleneck. And I had 3 inches for neck length, and because I want it to be able to fold over, I times that by 2 to get 6 total inches. So we do 6, which is your neck length, times rows per inch, which is 6, to get 36 rows for my turtleneck area. Now, if you're wanting to calculate in striping, I am planning in 3 stripes for the body area. I need to take my total number of rows for my body, which was 96, and divide that by 3, which is 32 rows per striped section. Alright, well, if you want to figure out how many rib stitch rows you want to do, you want to take your stripe section, you want to divide that by 2. So 32 divided by 2 is 16. I'm going to do 16 rows of rib stitch. Well, because I want to keep an equivalent to my sleeves, I'm going to be doing 16 rows of rib stitch on my sleeves, and I need to minus that from my total number of rows on my sleeve, which is 62. Okay, so what I would suggest doing is I'm going to have this on my blog written out, and I'll have the link to the written pattern that you can get on Ravelry below. But if you want the basic formula for making a simple sweater like this, then I will have this on my blog. Alright, and so what I would suggest doing is writing it out like this, you know, the formula, and plugging in and then on the written, write out what that number was all the way down. And that gives you a quick reference guide as to what you're after. So let's get started on the body now that we've got our recalculation of our neck, and go from there. Get started on our body. And what we have found is we need 70 pegs. And we're going to be using all of them. We're going to be working circularly, and I'm going to be starting off with my black. And what I've done is I've done an E-wrap cast on, and I'm doing a rib stitch because 70 divides into 5. I'm doing knit 3, purl 2 for 16 rows, and I'll show you that. So E-wrap cast on is pretty standard, and I'm going to show you what you need to do for your 16 rows. You're going to need to knit 3, and then you're going to need to purl 2, and then you're going to need to knit 3, and purl 2. I'm going to do this all the way around, and you're going to continue that for 16 rows, or whatever your calculation is between your measurements. And I will have a actual blog link to show you how to do a basic sweater calculation for any sweater you want. And then if you want the pattern for this, the link for the pattern will be below the video. So pause the video and get your rib stitching done on your body, and then we will move on from there. Okay, I have completed 16 rows, and I'm ready to do the rest of my first stripe, which is going to be 16 rows of stockinette, which is just straight knit. So what you want to do is you want to knit 70 pegs for 16 rows, round and round, to finish up the stripe. So go ahead and pause the video and knit for 16 rows, and then we will come back and change color into our yellow to do our next stripe. Alright, so pause the video and get your 16 rows of knit done, and we will move on from there. I have completed my 16 rows of knit, and I'm ready to change and do my next stripe, which will be 32 rows of knit. And so what we're going to do is we're going to change color. Now I've cut a short tail here, and we're going to do what I call the fisherman's knot or magic knot. Alright, and what you want to do is you want to take the yellow and do a half knot around the black. Push to the base. Almost too tight. Alright, then you're going to take this around and do a half knot around the yellow with the black. Okay, then what you want to do is try and pull it as much to the base as possible to tighten it. Alright, then you want to yank the two ends, and they should resist each other to where it should not be come undone. Then you have a very small knot. Alright, then you just snip your ends. Okay, that is how you change color. Now, because we did that, I want to loosen up these stitches here so that they aren't so tight when I go in to knit them. Alright, now you're ready to knit your next stripe, which is stockinette. So knit for 32 rows. So here we go, all the way around, knit round and round and round for 32 rows. So now that we've changed the color, do 32 rows of knit, and pause the video, complete that much, and then we'll come back and we'll do the same process. I'll show you how to do the same process to change back to the black and do 32 rows of black. If you already got the idea of this, you can pause the video and get that much done and progress on from where we will do the chest. Alright, but what you want to do is do 32 rows of your color, or your yellow, and then you'll change color again like I just showed you, and then you'll do 32 rows of the black again, and then we'll be ready for the chest area. Okay, so pause the video, get that much done, and then we'll go from there. As you can see, I've done all my striping, and I've actually already pre-done a chest area. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do that on this side because it's a repeat on the same thing. Okay, and so I'm going to explain how this works. Alright, so on our chest area, we worked up that we needed to do a total of 36 rows for the chest area. And we figured we needed to do 3 rows set because we rounded down because there's 0.27, so we rounded down to 3, which means you do 2 rows of knit, and then you do decreasing on the ends, so that'll be 2 decreases. So you have a decrease row with a total of 3 for a set. And you need to have a total of 11 decreases on each side with a total of 22. Alright, but if you follow this, keep in mind, if you do this exactly the way on the first step, you may end up with 1 more extra decrease than you intended, which I did. Now if that happens, what you do is you do 1 less decrease row over here, and you just knit it, okay, so that you get yourself back even again. And that's the problem when you have the 0.27. You're going to not be able to have all the it work out evenly because you have that decimal point in there with the whatever. Okay, so I did it exactly like I wrote up, and I ended up with a total of 24 decreases, and I have 11 rows. Okay, well, that means that when I go to do the decreasing on this side, I'll do 1 less decrease so that I have a total of, instead of being 11, it's 13 on this side, so that it keeps me even. So you got to keep in mind you need to end up with 54 stitches, so keep that in mind. Alright, so in order so that you know what we're doing, we are decreasing, and the idea is to have these wonderful chains down the side. Now, there'll be 2 options when you get to the decrease section of the sleeve. Alright, you can either add as you go, like what I'm going to do, or you can just do the sleeves, decrease and everything, and then sew up later. I don't like doing a whole lot of sewing if I don't have to. So you're going to need, I'll tell you right now, you'll need to have 4 of these. Alright, and what they're going to do is they're going to hold your stitches. So I'm going to show you how to set up and start decreasing on this side. Let you pause the video, get it down to however many you need. You can do the first one like regular, like I did over here, where you're down to 11. And then you want to make sure that you're down to only 13 over here. So you want there to be more. So that between the 2 you have 44 empty pegs. Alright, you want to just make sure that you have 44. And so you got to keep up with how many decreases you're doing. You can write it down as you go, but you really only want 22 decreases per side. So it's up to you how you want to do that. Maybe you just need to do 1 decrease on one side for that last one, and then 1 decrease on the other side for that last one in order to end up. Or you can just do a full decrease on one side and then do less on the other side, which would work for the back. Okay, so now it's time to change color. So I'm going to undo this, and then what I'm going to do is do what I've been doing, my magic knot, where I tie the working yarn, pull it to the base, tie that tight, take this and take it to the base as much as I can, tie it tight, pull it, and then you snip the ends so that you have it nice and snug, and the resistance keeps the knots from coming out. Alright, and then when you go to do the other side, you'll need to do a slip stitch to start your other side. Okay, alright, So now we're ready to get started. I'm kind of loosen that up like it's supposed to be. Alright, so what you want to do is when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you knit the last stitch, slip the first stitch when doing rows. So we're just going to get started. We're going to knit over. And remember, we're doing 3 rows. Alright, and so you do 2 rows of knit. So here's row 1. And by the way, you're going to divide the loom in half. And okay, that makes 35. So you put stitch markers down to divide your loom in half. They're 35. And if you don't have enough pegs or a loom that'll do in the round, you simply divide your total number of pegs in half and work half of the, say, the front half, then work the back half. And then you don't have to divide this system in half if you don't want to, like I'm doing right now, but it's generally what I do. Okay, we reached the end. We made sure we knitted that last stitch. I'm going to show you this decrease a couple of times. You're going to slip that first stitch. Slip is basically a skip, alright? And what you're doing is when you knit that last stitch and slip the first stitch of the next row, you're creating a nice chain. Now, decreasing is going to be a little different than you're used to. And I'll explain that in order to keep that nice chain going so that you see it when you go to start adding those chains in as you do the decrease section of your sleeves, the top of your sleeves. Then it's easy. I don't find it's very difficult. You're just decreasing the next stitch over rather than the end stitch. It's not bad. Okay, so this is going to be row 2. And then we're going to show you a decrease. And you just continue this patterning of 2 rows of knit and then a decrease row. Okay, so it's time to show you the decrease rows. And you saw that I just knitted that last stitch. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to take off that end stitch, take off the next, move that last stitch you picked up onto the next peg, which is your decrease, and then move that end stitch over. Alright. And how that gets written usually is slip, decrease, and then move the slip, knit the 2 together. Alright. So we're slipping that one, move that decrease, we're knitting the 2 together. Alright. Then you're going to stop just before the last 3 stitches on the other end to decrease. And again, I'm going to show you this twice, and then I'm going to let you run off and get your chest and back area done. Now I'm going to show you what you'll need to do with your stitch holders, and then I'll show you how to get started on your sleeves. This really isn't too bad of a pattern for a sweater. There are other sweaters that can be a lot more complicated than this. I don't think this one's that complicated. Okay, so here are the last 3. You want to pick up the last 2, move that one over, and then move the last stitch. Now how that's going to be written is skip that one, decrease the arrow decreasing, and then you go knit 2 together, and then you say, it says move that stitch over, and then knit it. Alright, that's what's going to be written out as. This is how it looks. So you've just decreased. Alright, and you'll want to keep a row counter for this, or you can just count. You can keep a row counter and also count your decreases, but I know for me I'm going to skip my last decrease row. So alright, I'm back to knitting 2 regular rows. So this is row 1. And you can use a variety of looms because it's 36 pegs for the sleeve. If you have a 36 peg loom that's in the round, you are more than welcome to end up using that one, and I'm considering actually using a 36 peg loom for the sleeve, but I will show you with just these two looms. But if you have it and it calculates up to 36 pegs and you have one in the round, you can use it. Interchange what you like, but I'll show you how to do this flat so that if you have the set of looms, you can just use it. Alright, so there's row 1, here's row 2. Slip that first stitch so you keep your chain going, and then I'll show you how to decrease. At this point, after I show you how to decrease, what you're going to want to do is continue the process, but make sure that you only have 44 decreases total. And if you want to leave those stitches on the other side until you're done so that you can count up and make sure there's only 44 decreases, you can do it that way. But you want to be between the sleeves and the collar area to have a total of 54 stitches. Alright, now we're going to decrease again. So we're going to lift up that end stitch. We're going to lift up the next, move that over, and move that over. Slip that first stitch and knit to just before the last 3 stitches on the other side. Then I'm going to tell you to pause the video, keep this process going until you're down to the number of rows you need. Again, you'll probably only need to do one decrease on the last section to end up with the correct amount. But remember, that decimal point can make the last rows where you have to fudge it a little. But it's not a big deal. Once you know what you're after, if you know what stitches you need to be down to or how many total decreases you need. Alright, we're down to the last 3. You're going to go over here to the end. You're going to skip. You're going to lift those end ones. You're going to decrease. And then place that stitch over so that you still have that nice chain. Knit the 2 together. And then knit 1. Okay. So go ahead and pause the video and get that much done. Okay, and then when you get started on the next section, you start with a slip stitch as your thing because you can't connect it. But you will want to put your stitches on a stitch holder. I'll show you how that's done. You may need 4 so that you can keep up with what's sleeve and what's not. But you just take them off and put them on the stitch holder and make sure you put them all the same way so that when you go to put them back on the loom, it is easier to figure out how you want to go about doing that, okay? So I'm going to take these off and go ahead and put them on my stitch holder. And that's how you do this section. And you'll need to do it on the other side too, because you're going to be adding these to the 54 peg loom, alright? And close that off. Alright. So pause the video, get both sides done, and then I'll show you how to start on the sleeve and how you kind of need to figure out what you need to calculate down to, because this is just a basic formula, but you still have to do little calculations in there and little bits of math and stuff like that, but it's not a big deal. But there is your area, and that is your front, okay? So pause the video, get that much done, and we'll come back and I'll show you how to start the sleeves. Okay, we finished with our body and now we're ready to start on our sleeves, and I'm going to go ahead and use the 54 peg loom for that. And what we gathered on our arms, our sleeves here, is that we needed a total of 78 rows and we needed a total of 36 pegs. Okay. And remember, we're planning on doing 16 rows of the rib stitch to keep up with the bottom, which means that we're going to be doing 16 rows of rib and 62 rows of stockinette. okay, because we're minusing the 16 from our total, and we're just going to do straight out black sleeves until we get to the decrease section, and then we're going to switch to yellow. Alright, so that I'm pretty sure it's called the yoke of the sweater is actually going to be all yellow, but the sleeves are going to be black because this is a bumblebee sweater that I'm making. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to count out 36, which I have, okay, and I'm going to do an E-wrap cast on, and I'm going to be knitting flat, and remember you want to knit the last stitch, slip the first stitch. So knit the last stitch of a row, slip the first stitch of a row, so that when you go to sew up, you just sew up the chains, and it's really easy to see how to do that. Alright, so I'm just going to E-wrap cast on. Okay, I'm going to shove all those down. Okay, because the first row I am going to knit that first stitch, and so I'm going to actually change up my rib stitch a little because I'm using 36 pegs, which divides up evenly into 6, so I'll knit 3 and purl 3. Alright, knit 3 and purl 3, and that way it'll still look very similar to the bottom of the body. If it does this, you just wrap it around like that to get yourself back to where you need to be. And somewhere in here it got messed up, but we always want to make sure we knit that last peg. Where did I get screwed up? Okay, I think I know where I got messed up. Alright. Slip that first stitch, and then you're going to go ahead and what it should have been is a purl 3 at the end, but you're going to knit that last stitch. Okay, and because we're so soon in here, you can actually fudge this bit. It should have been 3 purls, but you're going to knit the last stitch so that you can slip the first stitch. I'm going to purl 2, and I'm going to go ahead and knit 3. And then purl 3. And see, now this worked up right. So then you're going to knit 3, and that ends up knitting your last stitch. And then when you go back around, I'll show you this again so that it adds up right. Slip the first stitch, knit the first 2. It's the ends you got to keep up with. Okay, everything else adds up. It says ends, so like the other end, instead of purling 3, you're going to just purl 2 and knit that last stitch so that you have a nice chain to work with. So knit 3, purl 3. Then when you get to the end, purl 2, knit 1. Okay, and see, we ended up right. So it was 1, 2, 3. And then you would have done normally 3 purls. We're just going to do 2 purls and make sure that we knit that last stitch. Okay, it's important to knit that last stitch so that you can slip it and we create that chain. Okay. Alright, then we're going to slip and purl 2. So we're going to repeat those last 2 rows for 16 total rows. Alright, and then we'll switch over to stockinette and I'll show you how to do that. So pause the video, get your rib stitch rows done, and then I'll show you how to do your next section. Okay, now the last thing we were working on was our sleeve. I'm going to show you the last 2 rows that are what your stockinette's supposed to be done like. but this kind of gives you an idea of where you're leading. Remember, it's going to be 62 rows after your rib stitch. Alright, keep that in mind. And so I have 2 more rows to do, and I'll show you how that's done so that you have this nice beautiful chain that you can sew up later. Alright, and if you finished your chest area, this is what it should look like. The total number of stitches you should have from your chest area is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Okay, so you should have a total of 26 stitches on here, and then you'll figure out what you have left over. But what you want to do is try to make sure that when you go and you start decreasing on here, that you have 22 decreases only. No, don't do more decreases, because then I'll throw you off when you go to do your turtleneck area. Now, you'll notice that when you did the neck area, you have this nice chain here. This will be beneficial when you go to start this next section, which is the decreasing section. That'll connect this and make more of a kind of yoke for the sweater top. And you're fixing to need your yellow. Okay, but we're going to finish up with our black. So I'm going to show you how to do these stockinette rows. You're going to slip that first stitch, and you're going to knit your way around all the way. Okay, you're going to knit that last stitch, and then you'll slip it and go back the other direction. At this point, you'll knit that last stitch on the other end, pause the video, complete the rest of your rows, which is 62 or however many you calculated, and then we'll be ready to start our next section where we start decreasing the sleeve to start lining it up with the turtleneck area. And the thing is you're going to repeat this exact thing we just did with the sleeve with the other sleeve, and you're going to end up repeating the exact same way of decreasing and adding your sweater in at the same time on the other side as well. Okay, so here's our last row, and now we'll be ready to start decreasing and adding. And keep in mind, when we did that neck area calculation, it's still 3 rows, 2 rows of knit and then 1 row where you decrease on both sides. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's still the same when it comes to the sleeve. All right, we're going to change our colors to yellow, because as you can see in the picture here, it's lighter in color. Half knot, pull as tight to the base as possible. Go around and half knot the other side, and then try to pull it as far down to the base before tightening. Okay, get it as tight as possible. Okay, and then snip your ends, and then you'll re-loosen up your stitches when you're done, which is what I like to do. Go in and kind of loosen that up because we've just tightened it up some. Okay. Alright. Now, we've just changed color, and here's what we want to do next. This is where it can get complicated. You have 2 options. You can decrease and do that, just like we did here, and put your stitches on a stitch holder. Or, if you don't want to have to try to connect and sew later on the this area, you can attach like I'm going to show. Okay. Alright. So what we want to do is, it doesn't matter which side you want to start with. You could start with this side, you could start with this side, but you want your right side going in. And so the next section, so go ahead and pause the video and complete your sleeve, and we'll come back and I'll show you how to do the next section. So we're ready to start adding and doing our decrease section of our sleeve. And what I'm going to actually show you is just go in and decrease it like you did here. Now that I think about it, you can't do it because this section here doesn't stretch enough to get the ends connected, so we're not going to worry about that. Alright, so what we're going to do, you might could do it if you didn't have all your sweater as one piece in the body. If your front and back are separate, then you could do what I had thought to do, but it's not a big deal. We're just going to go ahead and do just like we did with this. We're going to knit our way over, slipping that first stitch. Again, if you were to have done the front and back separate, then you could have done what I was wanting to do, which was just connect as you go, but I didn't, and so we'll just have to do it where you just sew it all the way up. Okay. So this will be row 1 of a set. And again, this will work a lot like what we just did on the body. You're just doing it with, we're just starting it off with less pegs. Well, really not that much less. When you divided it in half, that was 35 and this is 36. So it's really not much different than doing the body area. Okay, so you've knitted that last stitch, slip it, and then knit your way back, and this is row 2. And then we're going to do our decrease because this is row 3. Okay? So we've knitted that last stitch. Then what we want to do is move that stitch over to decrease, and then move that end stitch over so that we can slip it and keep our chain while still decreasing. Okay? And then knit those two together and knit your way over to just before the last 3, and then you'll decrease again. Again, what you'll do is just be repeating what you did for the neck area of your body. Exactly. You'll just be repeating that, and then you'll put them on the stitches on the stitch holder. Okay? And you're going to repeat this same exact thing with the other sleeve. So you're going to do the exact same thing that you did here on your decreasing, and then you put the stitches on a stitch holder. If you feel like you have enough room, you can add one set of sleeves to the end here and the other set of the other sleeve to here if you feel like you have enough room, or you can just do 4 separate stitch holders. Okay, so after I show you this decrease, I'm going to tell you to go off and complete it. Remember, you only want 22 decreases only. Alright, make sure you count them out, and the easiest way to count them out is when you start getting close to, like, excuse me, I've got a decrease, so when you get close to, I think, 30 the 32 row mark, you'll want to go in and you'll want to check and count your empty pegs. So you'd count over, should be 11 on this side and 11 on this side, okay? And so what you want to do is you want to count over and make sure that you only have 22. And if you do, just complete in stockinette like we've been doing your 36 rows total, all right? And then take the stitches off. So, all right, then we're going to knit those two together and then knit one. Okay, now that is the same process that we just did with this. You're just doing it on a sleeve, okay? And then you'll put the stitches on the stitch holder, and you'll repeat the exact same thing that you did with this sleeve with the other sleeve. And then when you're done with your sleeves, we'll come back and we'll do our turtleneck area, all right? And that's where we're going to add all these stitches that we have on stitch holders back to this particular loom. And then we're going to just be working in the round. So we're almost done. So go ahead, pause the video, complete your decrease, put these on a stitch holder, get your other sleeve done, decrease it, and put it on a stitch holder so that when we come back, we'll be ready to do the turtleneck area. Okay, I have finished both my sleeves. I'm going to keep this one attached, and I'm going to attach everything else around it. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is figure out how I want to place things, because now's the time to add the stitches back. Okay, to start doing the turtleneck. Okay, now what we want to do is, I think it needs to go this way. Okay, so because what we want to do it to be a sleeve, front, sleeve, back. All right, so what we want to do is bring this up in here. Okay, you want the positive side facing you, and you want to add your stitches back. And you're just going to line them go in, and you're going to add all these in. Then you're going to, after you add all these in, you notice I didn't do any overlapping, I just added it straight in. Then what you want to do is go in and start adding in the sleeve on the other side, and then the other thing, and just line it up all the way around. Just go ahead and pause the video, add all your chains into the loom, and then we'll come back and be ready to start on our turtleneck area. Okay, so I have reattached all my stitches. As you can see, every single peg has a stitch on it. And so now what we want to do is we want to go in and start our knitting. So my attached yarn is here for my last sleeve, and as you can see, here's a sleeve, here's the front, here's another sleeve, and here's the back, and it lines up. So make sure it lines up. And here what you want to do is you want to go ahead and you want to go around and just do a regular knit all the way around. Okay, so I'm going to be actually starting, I've knitted my way around, and what I'm going to be doing is using this as my starting point. And what I'm going to be doing is a total of 36 rows. Now, if you don't want to do a fold down turtleneck, and you're doing this size, remember, you just don't double it. You just do 18 rows. And so because I want to fold it down, I need to do 36 rows. And because this is all I have left of my black, I'm going to kind of fudge this a little because I'm folding it down. I'm going to finish with my black. And so what I'm going to do is do half in yellow and half in black, and then I'm going to do the modified bind off. So at this point, I'm going to be doing a 6 peg rib stitch, okay? So that means a knit 3, purl 3. I'm going to do it for 18 rows in my yellow color, and then I'm going to switch colors like you've seen me do, and I'm going to finish up the other 18 rows in black. So I'm going to tell you to pause the video and complete your rows for your turtleneck for a total of 36 rows, okay? And then we will come back and I'll show you how to bind off, all right, and finish sewing up. Now, I've already sewn one sleeve up, as you can see. I've done a chain sew, but you'll need to be able to sew your sections here up and here to finish closing up. So go ahead and finish your turtleneck. You want to do knit 3, purl 3, depending on what your loom is for your turtleneck area. I would suggest it be big enough to fit over your head. Typically the size of a beanie hat you would wear is what I would use for your neck area, just as kind of a guide to go off of, and do however long of a turtleneck you want. So for me, I'm going to do 36. So go ahead and pause the video, complete your turtleneck area, doing a rib stitch round and round, and then when we come back, I'll show you the modified bind off and what you need to do to finish up the last finishing touches and sewing up your sweater. It's really easy from here. Okay, I've done my 36 rows. We're down to the finishing touches of our sweater. And what we want to do so that it has as much stretch as possible at the neck with still a clean finish, you're going to do the modified bind off. So what you want to do is you want to knit the first 2 pegs, take that second stitch back to the first peg, toss the bottom loop over, move over 1. And you come around, you're going to knit pegs 1 and 2. Take stitch 2, back to peg 1, toss the bottom loop over, and move the stitch over. Take it around to the front, knit pegs 1 and 2, take it back 1, toss the bottom loop over, and move it over 1. And you do this all the way around, knit pegs 1 and 2, take that second stitch back to the first peg, toss the bottom loop over, and move over 1. You're going to do that all the way around. And then what you want to do, and I'll try to show this as best I can. I know this is dark fabric, but you have these chains that are at the end. Alright, and I always like to start at the sleeve end. Alright. I'm going to make me a slip stitch. Okay. And show you how I do this. Now, what I like to do is send it through the very first chain I can find. Okay. On the one sleeve. And then send it through the very first chain I can find on the other. And then send that through. Okay. Then I like to go in and try to sew these tails in as I go. You're going to send it through the next chain that you see. And then you're going to send it through the next chain over here and pull it through. Okay. Again, you're just going to continue to work that in. And then we're going to go to the next chain. And then go to the next chain. Send those through. Okay, the next chain. And you just want to make sure that your seaming stitch is going around your tails, alright? And you want to keep doing this all the way up to the black. And what I like to do is when I get up here, sew up the black, and then you want to switch colors, and you want to do the same thing. You want to sew up the chain side. As you can see, you have a nice chain there. You want to sew those up on all 4 edges. Alright, and once you do that, then you will have finished the sweater. So it's mostly just the fine touches of sewing up your edges, and once you do that, then you're done. You've completed your sweater. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, in case you're wanting to do this, if you're wanting to bind off each one of these rather than carry the stitch over, I wouldn't suggest it. The reason being is a bind off puts a limit to it. When you reattach the stitches, it keeps that nice stretch there. Okay? But otherwise, go ahead and finish sewing up, binding off, and that is how you make a sweater.